What's up, everybody? Here we are again. Girls are still asleep, so we're recording some more things. So that's what we're going to talk about. And it's a question that we get a handful of times since our most recent move.
All the time. Every question we get.
A lot of handfuls.
Yeah.
But it's the differences between Hawaii and Oklahoma.
Obviously, very different mainland.
Yeah, if you don't know, we are originally from Oklahoma. We lived in Hawaii for 5 years, and then we just moved back to Oklahoma 3 months ago. And so
He's from Yukon. I'm from Jinx. Born and raised.
So we know Oklahoma in and out for the most part. Jen never really left Jinx, but I know Oklahoma in and out. So,
It's true. I'm a South Tulsa girl. I'm sorry.
So anyway, there are a lot of differences though, and honestly, it's been
Really hard.
It's been difficult coming back here, and some of the things that we had gotten used to in Hawaii are things we didn't even notice that we were used to, that have then been a little bit challenging to transition to here. And the biggest thing I think is culture, is for just variety in cultures and just seeing all the different
Asian
diversities.
In Hawaii, like Korean, Japanese, Filipino. There's so many different cultures there that it's like this beautiful mesh pot of that's Pidgin. It's a mix of all these different languages and cultures that have formed into this one thing to where we're all able to understand it. And so it's been really hard to come to Oklahoma, even though we were born and raised here. There's just a bunch of white people, which is great, but it's a little bit different coming from Asian culture that's very family oriented, very just met around food and just potluck and parties. And here it's just it's a little bit different. Yeah. I mean, it's also because it's COVID and it's just hard. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, and I think it's one of those things where I didn't realize how pigeonholed, I guess you could say, isn't this the right word? I don't know. The culture in Oklahoma is everyone looks like me, so it's all white people with short hair, and it's and most everybody nowadays has a scruffy beard like me too, and so it's just one of those things that's been a little bit weird to come back into that. Where when we moved to Hawaii, it was definitely a challenge when we first got there, because when we first moved there, we lived in Waianae, and not sea country, deep, pretty deep Waianae, actual Waianae, and so we were, I was the only white guy on the whole street, and which I was 1000% okay with, but I had to learn kind of my place, and I had to learn that it's different than being on the mainland, or at least in Oklahoma. Here, if somebody moves to Oklahoma, within 5 seconds of being here, you're called an Oklahoman. Whenever I moved to Hawaii, it didn't matter how long I lived there. If I lived there till I'm 80, 90 years old, I'll never be considered Hawaiian, and I'd never really even be considered necessarily local. I would always just be the guy that came from Oklahoma. And so that's kind of a hard thing, is to try to feel a part of a place that you love and hold dear, but it's almost like you can't claim it as completely as your home. It's, I don't know, it's kind of a challenging thing to explain.
And people are very in Hawaii, what are your roots? Where do you come from? And I think for me, I've always kind of been, I look white, but I'm also kind of a minority of what are you type thing, or are you Hispanic, whatever. So it's I've kind of always been treated a minority. So coming to
She's
Hawaii.
Filipino,
I'm Filipino, yes. So coming to Hawaii, it was so beautiful, because everything that I was taught and raised by made sense. The stuff that I ate, the way that I called everyone auntie and uncle, it all made sense. But in Oklahoma, you don't do that. So my mom introducing a friend would be this is auntie or uncle so and so, or tita tito, or manong manang, all these different names. But here, it's either you call them Kyle or Jen, or Mr. and Mrs., doctor, whatever. And also in Hawaii, one of the first few things that they ask you is what are you? What is your culture? What is your background? What do you do for fun? In Oklahoma, it's oh, okay, cool. What do you do? As in what do you do for a living type thing. And so it's just very different of Oklahoma, you're treated by what you kind of do for a living. In Hawaii, it's okay, who are you as a person, and what do you do for fun? Type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And also weird thing is like in Hawaii, people talk a lot. We just talk story all the time. Like we have potluck all the time, and we could have seen the people yesterday and the day before yesterday and whatever, and be up late talking every single night and do the same thing over and over again, just like to talk story and get to know each other. Versus I feel like in Oklahoma, it's like kind of more or less like, okay, let's eat and then we'll go, and we won't like sit and like talk story for some time. So it's been like hard for like, oh, we could sit here for hours, but some people like just don't do that, and that's okay. But it's just like something that we've had to adapt to, of like, man, we saw you yesterday and we'll see you today and we'll talk even more. And yeah,
I don't know if it's just people have more
Places
things
to
on their
go.
plate here,
Yeah.
or more things to do, or what it is, but you know, it seems, yeah. That, I mean, we love just like spending time just sitting talking with people. I mean, obviously we're sitting here talking on a screen about talking, you know. So it's like we don't have a problem sitting and talking to people for hours. But that's one thing we found here that's been difficult is basically the people show up for whatever the event is.
Yeah.
So if it's like, hey, let's all get together and have dinner, it's like we're literally just gonna have dinner, and then that's it.
and then kind of leave.
In some circles, we have
Yeah.
some circles that definitely aren't that way.
Yeah.
But in a lot of circles, it feels like we eat dinner, dinner's done, pay the bill, everyone goes home. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, we kind of thought we were just gonna sit here and chat for a while, and yeah, so that's been a little bit just different to kind of get used to. I'm sure there's other differences, but those are kind of the main
You're a
things.
minority there. I think you kind of talked about
Yeah,
that.
we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Which was really good for me. I think I got into a little bit. It was really good for me to be somewhere that I wasn't from. Because Oklahoma, like, I know somebody just about in every corner of the state. And so I can kind of go do what I want to do here. Whereas there, I had to definitely learn how to know, look, I'm not
Read the people
allowed
around
to
them.
surf that wave. I'm not allowed to do this. I have to wait. Like, you know, like one of the big things for me as soon as we got there was surfing. And so I wanted to learn the culture and learn how, like, what are the rules in the water, and learn all those different things. So I was always paying attention, and things that I learned is I don't get the choice waves. You know, it's like I'm not from there. That's not. I didn't grow up surfing those waves. I didn't. You know, my family didn't grow up surfing those waves. And so if I want to go out there, I've got to know out of the pecking order, which is you had to learn to just be okay with. And you know, especially if I go and I blow a wave, then then I'm really at the bottom. But if I can go out, even if I'm like surfing really good that day, I still have to know where you're at in the pecking order. And that was a thing that was, I wouldn't say it's hard for me. It was more so just like I had to learn it. But it was good to kind of learn what it's like to not be the norm, I guess, like to not be the average person there. So yeah, anyways, I think it was great. It was we really really loved our time there. Who knows, we'll probably go back at some point. But every day, I don't know, it just depends on the day. Like a week ago, we were like, let's move back, and then next thing you know, we're like, oh no, it's not bad here. Who knows? Maybe we'll do both. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, out of here.